Mm, it's open.
Good evening. At this time, I would like to call to order the August 14th, 2024 meeting of the Warrensville Heights Community School District. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Freeman,
Here.
Mr. Fuller, here. Mrs. Moomin,
Here.
Mrs. Gator, here. Mr. Roberts.
Here. Next item on the agenda, would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions that need to be made to our agenda this evening?
No, there's no changes or additions to the agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jolly. Board, do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we accept item 1.3, which is the approval of the agenda.
And I'll second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Dr. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fuller,
Here. Yes.
yes. Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Next item on our agenda is 2.1, school presentations. At this time, I would pass to Mr. Jolly.
Yes, board. I'd just like to say today was our first day of school. I would like to give our principals and staff an outstanding applause for a great start. Our principals team plan today was our first day, sixth graders, ninth graders, and our K 1 to 5 started today. Great day, no complaints. People didn't have schedules, got schedules. They also did a great job with open house. So I think we're off to a great start. Today, our school, the board did request that our schools come to the meeting today to give their presentations for the new year. All of our schools are required to write school improvement plans.
Okay.
So today, I ask that they come give you an overview of what their plans are for the year. Because this year, as at the convocation, we have to level up. We have to improve. Our principals are our quarterbacks at the school. They are the people who make it go on a daily basis. Um, and today is their opportunity to share with you their plans to level up, to move our schools to the next level so that next year we're sitting out of 4 districts. We are a premier district, and that we can recoup some of the losses that we did have this year. I believe we have a great team. I believe their presentations are here will demonstrate their planning and their strategic nature. They will come back in the middle of the year once we have some data and have went through some of our testing cycles. I'm just looking forward to the presentation. We're going to start with our elementary school, then we'll proceed to our middle school. We'll go to our high school, and right now it's open house for our early childhood center. So she'll come probably at the end of Ms. Bishop's presentation, then she'll do her presentation. So without further ado, our longest tenured principal in our district, Ms. Thompson, if she could come on up and present.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good
evening.
Board. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, community. I'm Takiba Thompson, principal of Warrensville Heights Elementary School. I'm very proud to stand here and discuss what we expect for this year. What you're looking at right now is something called our Acadians data. And our Acadians data is one of our benchmark tests that we take for all our scholars in our school building. We kind of look at this data and we build our NNI, which is no new instruction time. And so with looking at this data, we are looking at our kiddos who are in the red, which means they are below grade level. And with our NNI interventions, we are looking to provide them individualized support that's going to help them attack the skills that they need to move from that red into the yellow, green, and blue. We are also progress monitoring those red kids every 2 weeks so we can find out if we need to change up those interventions and get them exactly what they need. A lot of things with Acadians that we all want to understand is fluency. So time matters. So our scholars have 1 minute on some assessments to get things done. So the red doesn't suggest that all of our kids can't read. What it's suggesting is that our kids are not reading fluently. So they need to pick up the speed to read. And they need to have that proper cadence so that when they read, they understand exactly what they read, and that leads into comprehension.
Okay.
We're also going to focus on, I wasn't ready yet. Sorry. Focus on growing our blue and green scholars, which is our scholars who are on grade level. In the past 2 years, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out decision frameworks on how to move those red kids. We want to put that same energy and more into making sure we grow our green and our blue kids as well. And then those yellow kids we call our bubble kids. We want to provide more skills to move them up to the green. That leads over to the bigger picture, which is our Ohio State testing. And so we had goals in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Unfortunately, our 3rd grade scholars and 4th grade scholars as a group did not meet our goal of increasing by 7%. So we are looking at fixing that by way of more intentional NNI group, having our scholars move. So our NNI groups is 1 hour a day. And so having them move to teachers who are comfortable with certain things and who are skilled to grow kids in specific areas. So we want to make our groups more flexible so that our kids get exactly what they need from the teachers who are very, very skilled in that specific area. I'm really proud and excited to announce that Warrensville Heights Elementary School has a new Tier 1 curriculum. Tier 1 has been kind of broken and pieced together for years, and we've been trying to intervene our way out of that problem. We have corrected that problem by adopting a new Tier 1 curriculum. So our teachers are receiving PD. I've received some PD on it so that we can better equip our kids with reading, vocabulary, and comprehension, knowledge-based curriculum. And then increasing our teacher PD so that the more they learn, they can specifically teach our scholars. OST math, our goals were not met in 3rd and 4th grade. Our focus there will be on differentiating instruction for math during that whole group instruction time. Learning more about our curriculum and what our curriculum has to offer before we go out and think that we need any supplemental things. We want to stick with the curriculum. We want to do some differentiated instruction in small group and math. We want to also ensure that our teachers are using common language across the grade levels so that as our kids matriculate to the next grade level, skills that they've already learned, they could add on to it by way of common language. One of the ways we want to make sure that happen is to ensure more vertical planning time for our teachers so that our 3rd grade teachers can get with our 4th grade teachers, our 3rd grade teachers can get with our 2nd grade teachers, and we can kind of connect those dots so that that common language can happen for our teachers who teach math. OST science, the goal was met there. And so we want to continue what we used this year. It was Procore. We introduced that to the 5th grade team as a way of using benchmark assessments that mirror our OST. And they began to look at how the scholars did on there, and they built different vocabulary games such as Jeopardy to give them more exposure. We saw more word walls in science, and we saw a lot of hands-on applying science to real life so the students could comprehend and better understand what it is that they needed to do in science. So we will definitely continue that work. What you have in front of you is the reading triangulation data, and that is our iReady, Acadience, and OST. And so what we noticed from there was that our Acadience data, and that is the test that I first talked about, that tell us about fluency and our scholars reading and the areas that they need help in there compared to our OST data. The scores were very comparable. In 2 out of the 3 cases, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our OST data was higher than our iReady data and our Cadence data. So we'll continue to monitor our testing environment for iReady to ensure that it mirrors our testing environment for OST so that our kids have the best environment to take the test. This is our iReady reading data. Scholars are growing from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And so one thing that we do very well at Warrensville Heights Elementary School is grow kids from the time that they walk in to the time that they leave. What we are really targeted and have to look at this year is ensuring that as they grow, some students need to grow 200%. 100% is just not enough for them to grow within that 1 year. So we'll have to look at how do we take our kids individually from being off grade level to moving the needle even more so that they can get closer to grade level and closing that gap as much as possible within 1 year span. One of the good things that we really have in our district that we're appreciative of is branching minds. And so branching minds is that data warehouse. And so now teachers have years of data, now 2 to 3 years of data that they can look at versus getting a kid and only knowing last year's data. They know the progress monitoring. They know what teachers in the past have been working on so they can pick up and move forward. And so with iReady 2, we want to target our reading, vocabulary, and comprehension. And that's also targeted by way of our new curriculum, which is CKLA. iReady Math, again, beginning of the year to end of the year, the growth is there. Again, we still have to give them more than 100% growth so that we can close that gap. We're going to increase our math focus and incentives. Kids love our incentives. We do things like bubblegum math, especially when it comes to facts, because if our scholars don't know their addition facts or multiplication facts, it becomes really hard for them to tackle multi-step problems. And so we are tackling that both ways by way of increasing our fluency in problem solving, but also in reading, because again, if they can't read the word problem, they can't interpret what the word problem is asking us to do. Next. So where do we go from here? We did not meet two out of the 3 grades. We didn't meet our goals. And so what we need to do is exceed our district goal of 7% in 3rd and 4th grade for reading and math. A stretch goal of ours will be 14% because we did not do it last year. So we owe it to our scholars to make it up to them this year and double that. And so we are talking at Warrensville Heights Elementary School. Our focus this year is to enhance our student achievement by delivering high quality lessons and promoting active engagement in the classroom. Together, we'll create that environment where every student is motivated and supported to reach their full potential. And so how are we going to get there? With a positive mindset, with growing kids, with working as a team. When we talk about teamwork, we are talking about teachers planning together. A lot of teachers in previous years asked for more time, and with their new contract, they've been granted that new time, more time to plan individually and collectively as a team. So I'm really looking forward to our TBT meetings and our meetings as a group to really talk about data, to really talk about what's happening with the curriculum and what do we need to do to ensure that our kids are moving, to talk about progress monitoring, to talk about here's the scores, and so what do we need to do, who do we need to move, exactly what do those kids need. So those will be the recurring conversations in our team meetings. We are also working as a team with parents. We have implemented, you can go to the next slide while I say this. We've implemented last year a red folder where it's read every day. So we are equipping our parents with books and passages, and we are just asking them to make sure that their kids are reading every single day, because the one thing about reading fluency is there's no magic wand, there's no magic problem. It is reading. The only way we can get kids fluent in reading is exposing them to reading. And so that's what we're trying to do. We are sending home books. We're sending home in the folders. We're replenishing the books. We're replenishing the passages. And so we're just asking our parents to partner with us in regards to ensuring that 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day that kids are reading. They can read in the backseat of the car. They can read at the kitchen table while the parents are cooking. We get creative with how we read, but we want to really make sure that our families are partnering with us with reading. And we are also providing those opportunities to read during the school day. We are using our data to inform instruction, looking at our small groups, as I mentioned. Definitely taking a look at that tier 1 and make sure we are using it with fidelity. Again, administrators have been trained in the curriculum as well, so that when we do our walkthroughs, we're able to provide feedback in regards to ensuring that all materials that's provided are being used. Another way we have to look at not only just academics, but go back one, sorry. Yeah. not just academics, but just making sure our scholars' needs are being taken care of in our building. Every scholar is afforded the opportunity to eat breakfast and lunch. We have snacks for kids who come late. We're making sure that, you know, our scholars are in uniform. We have uniform donations. If a kid spills anything or have any accidents, we have things there to take care of them, make sure they're clean and get them back to instruction. We do have building-wide PBIS system, which is the Positive Behavior Intervention Support. We have applied for a level 2 recognition because we are really working on tier 2 programs. And those tier 2 programs are programs that's going to support our scholars who have more behavior needs so that we can meet their needs so that they can access the curriculum. We are definitely doing more after school programs because kids who are engaged in school itself has a more positive effect on them academically. And so we have art therapy, drama club, Girl Scouts, Sisters with Purpose, and different programs like that so that scholars can stay after and engage, build relationships with staff, build relationships with other peers. And so that is the end. So our focus is increasing proficiency, closing those academic gaps, and building a stronger community. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. Mrs. Thompson, over the last 3 years, and you are the longest tenured principal, what do you see has changed in those last 2 or 3 years? Like, what do you see in your school that changed that actually happened last year? Do you see any changes from the previous 2 or 3 years previous to?
I see change in regards to our staff is learning more of the science of reading. I see that it's becoming increasingly difficult because we are down to the granular level in regards to what kids need to succeed. And so when you go down to the granular level and you try and help kids succeed and you have a class of 20, 22 kids, you have to create the time to make sure that they are getting what they need, but also making sure that they are getting that grade level rigorous instruction. So our staff is become increasingly aware and overloaded, if you will, in a good way, with information, professional development around the science of reading, noticing that what we had wasn't enough. So then we pilot different curriculums. We spent a lot of time last year looking at 2 different curriculums, dissecting and pulling it apart, trying to figure out what works best for our kids. And so as anyone would know, there's no one perfect curriculum. And so with dissecting, we had to figure out with this one that we're going to choose, what else do we need to do to ensure that we're not going backwards, that we're moving forward to make sure our kids get what we need. So lots of teamwork is happening in the building. Lots of teachers are stepping up to say, hey, I want to be on this committee. I want to do this. So a lot of education as far as professional development for the staff to do what's best for kids because it is growing increasingly difficult, especially when we look at the gaps that we're trying to close.
Great job. Great job.
One quick question with me. So if you were to come back and do an update, what would that look like? How 3 months from now? Would it be for Christmas break? When would you start to see, I'm not even going to say results, when would you be able to measure how they are now to where they are, say?
I would say our mid-year benchmark, which will be December, January. Once we get our results back and we're able to look at where they started at in August and September, our instruction, because we'll be, again, our scholars who are in the red, we'll get that progress monitoring. So we'll be able to see bi-weekly how they're doing, if they're growing, down to how they started the school year reading 6 words per minute. We put in this intervention 2 weeks later, they're reading 14 words per minute. They're still below grade level, but they're growing. And so our goal is to get them up to grade level, to the proper number of words per minute that's designed per grade level. So in January, December, after we get our second round of benchmark testing, our assessments, then we'll be able to show where scholars started and then where we are mid-year.
Thank you.
I have, I don't know whether it's a comment or a question, but anyway, my biggest concern is, and I'm going to ask you this, do you feel comfortable as of today that we have enough staff in your building to meet the need of our children?
Absolutely, but I'm the person who say I can always use more, so that's probably not a good question for me. But we have everybody, right. So we have our positions filled, our teachers are in place, yes. Our classroom sizes are very reasonable, so we are ready to do the work. But if you have any teachers who want to come and work, and we will definitely take them because we have 700 something
I just
kids, so
want to make sure
we can
we
share
have
the
enough
wealth.
people in place.
Yes.
I mean, what percentage of our kids are below grade level at this point that you know from last year to today? How many do we have below grade level?
I would say about 40%.
About 40%. That's really
And
high.
it in some grade levels is higher and some grade levels is lower. So
Okay.
and unfortunately, if you say below grade level, um, anything that's not on grade level is below grade level. So we do have a significant group of bubble kids, is what I call them, and they are right there. And so that will be one of our big focuses to make sure we get those bubble kids over that hump, because we can see the results of the bubble kids faster than we can with who are friends who are in red. We have to really dig deep and build up our kids who are in red, and we do an amazing job building up our red kids. So we just have to make sure we continue to do that, and make sure our bubble kids is what I call them. You just need a few tweaks, a few more skills to build on, to put in their tool belt, to put them in the green, which is grade level.
So is your bubble the yellow?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you asked that because I was going to ask, what are we doing with those kids that are just could go either way?
Yeah. Last year we had intervention teachers and they were housed by grade level. This year I am looking at doing that different. I'm going to use them as what I call like a SWAT team. So they are all going into each grade level for 1 hour to do those interventions. And one of the things about that is that gives that classroom teacher an opportunity to work a little bit more with their red kids, because we have a SWAT team of teachers that's going to come in and do some interventions with the rest of the class.
Okay. You also mentioned that you want more planning time for the teachers.
Well, throughout the years, that's always been, we always just needed more time. And so this year, with their new contract, we have granted them that time of more planning. So
is it after school or before school?
So our teachers at Warrensville Heights Elementary School, they'll do their before school, and that's their individual planning time. And they can reach out for help during that time, but then that frees them up for more TBT data team time while their kids are at art, gym, music, which is during the school day. And so that's the time where administrators, our coaches, and teachers just work together to really dig into the work.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thompson, thank you for your presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry. One second, I have a couple questions myself. At the beginning, you had mentioned the Acadians data, and then you contrasted that it was different from the OST data. So how is the starting data for Acadians determined?
How's it determined?
Yes, ma'am.
So the scholars take Acadians test one-on-one, and they have to either read the words or read a passage, versus the OST is on a computer. They're answering, they're typing extended responses and things of that nature.
So that's administered internally by us?
Yes.
Okay, so how often, you say that there's going to be monitoring of that. So if I'm a third grade scholar and I, got my end of year scores last year, how long would it be before I was, like tested again this year?
So this year, our first round comes in 2 weeks. But again, as you stated, as a third grade scholar, your teacher has your results from last year. And so tomorrow is our first day to meet in of the year. And that's where we're going in as grade level teams to kind of look at the data and make plans and pick up on interventions right there. Because again, we have this amazing system called Branch of Minds, where we can look in and see what interventions they left off at the end of last year and pick right up. And so we are doing that because the goal is to get some of those kids off ramps, which would ultimately help our report card grade. So we are starting immediately with those small groups.
Okay. And based upon your beginning numbers, that you showed us, what would you consider like a win at the end of year? What would you consider a win? What level of kids like in the blue would you consider, okay, we were successful this year?
I mean, all of them.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I mean, it's
All right, that's a good answer.
success is all kids on grade level.
Right.
Okay.
I would be honestly, I would be happy if we only had about 20% of our scholars in red.
Okay.
That would be amazing, and that is something that we are working towards as a district is to decrease our number of scholars who are on grade level, who are not on grade level.
Understood.
Okay.
All right, and one last question.
Yes.
You mentioned getting the scholars to read the 15 to 20 minutes per day. How are we engaging the parents to push that down to them? What are we doing?
So typically we have something in the building every month
Mhm.
where parents are coming in. Rather it's a parent night. We had karaoke and we provided food. Anytime we get them there, we are talking literacy. We had a third grade meeting in the beginning of last year that we'll do again this year for just third grade families to
Mhm.
kind of let them know what to expect throughout the year and the mandates of the third grade reading guarantee. And so every month up until May, we have May is our big event where we have Talk About Reading Night and we provide walking tacos. It's a family event. We have games centered around literacy. So every month we are offering something at Warrensville Heights Elementary School for our parents to come in and just explore and learn about how they can help their child at home. We do have something called Class Dojo that all of our families are on. So I'm constantly posting things on there, posting kids reading, reminding parents to make sure their kids are reading, posting research about kids reading and the benefits of reading. So we do also educate them that way as well.
All right, thank you. Board, any additional questions?
Mhm.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Salters, you're up next. In our middle school.
Mr. John, can we have these sent to us, please?
Yes, ma'am, I'll forward them to the board.
Good evening, board,
Good
and
evening.
Mr. Jolly and the community, and everyone here on the staff from Warrensville Middle School. So I just wanted to start out the presentation for Warrensville Heights Middle School with just revisiting our vision and our mission, because that is something that as the leader of the school that I'm really diving deep into with my staff this year, and making sure that everyone understands it, they understand what they need to bring to the table to complete this vision and mission for our scholars. Also, I am aligning and ensuring that our school is aligned with our district goal of the 7% increase. And at this time, I'm expecting us to exceed the 7% increase this year. So we are following what has been outlined for us this coming year, which is a heavy focus on explicit instruction. And right here, I just have an introduction of myself. Ms. Shelley Brown is the assistant principal. She's here as well. And this year, we actually have a second assistant principal coming on board. His name is Mr. Terrence Curtin. He's not with us at this time, but he has definitely been very supportive and involved. He actually attended open house with us last night, and he was at the convocation on Friday. So he's not able to be with us for a short time. He'll be joining us, but he's definitely been a great support with what we are trying to implement in the school this year. So we can move to the next one.
Next slide.
So I just wanted to review our previous school year and what are some of our wins and our losses at Warrensville Heights Middle School, and being very appreciative and honest. We did transition to a brand new state-of-the-art facility, and there were a lot of adjustments there, but it's definitely appreciated. Our students were excited to enter a new building. Our staff was excited. We had all the bells and whistles. So, which I want to thank you all, the board again, and the community for making that happen, Mr. Jolly. So that was a little bit of our getting into the year, but with that, we did bring along, thanks to Ms. Thompson and what they started at the elementary school, our kings and queens on a mission. Our school counselor, Ms. Lewis, she continued that program into the middle school this past year, and it was exceptional. So we're looking forward to it growing, and it is moving up to the next grade levels. So it's not just an elementary anymore. We're working on this coming year, we'll have 7th graders involved in that. And then along with our student council, which we've always had, and they're like our student ambassadors for Warrensville Heights Middle School. our National Junior Honor Society. We are actually growing in that program as well. More of our students are being recognized and having a grade point average that exceeds what's needed to be in the National Junior Honor Society. This past year was our first year with full implementation of our Project Lead the Way program. And that's one of our teachers who transitioned to a new position. She had very intensive professional development and training to bring that to our school as well. And we have done, I feel like our district has, but our middle school, we've done an exceptional job of college experiences and exposures for our younger scholars, getting them ready and thinking about post-secondary and what they would like to do in the future. Also in our previous year, there has been, and I have had some challenges with staffing, appropriate staffing, not necessarily shortages, but maybe just not having the right fit. We have not had the right fit necessarily at the middle school for staffing there. So we have went back to the drawing board and revamped some things in our staffing. And some of that is contributing to this, but there are many things contributing to the low performance on state test scores at Warrensville Heights Middle School. I will say I did have one area, which was 8th grade Algebra 1 from our honor students who did an exceptional job with 88% proficiency, but we did not meet any of the test scores, 7% growth that we should have at Warrensville Heights Middle School. But this year, our focus is on academic excellence, and like I stated, that we are going to exceed our 7% increase in math, ELA, and science. Our science is only in the grade level of 8th grade that we're tested for the state. And what we've done this year is that we've had some creative scheduling. We will have intervention 3 times per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It will be delivered from our math and ELA teachers with support from science and social studies, along with support from our coaches within our building, our secondary literacy coordinator and math coordinator. But our goal is to implement meaningful professional development to support teachers and improve instructional practices. So one thing that we are heavily focusing on this year is the writing revolution, where we're expecting enhanced writing across the curriculum, every grade level, not just the reading teacher is having kids write essays. We are expecting to see more writing in all math, even math. I'm expecting students to be able to write math word problems. If they're going to understand them, they should be able to write them. They should be able to create things. But what we did find out, and what is understood, is that after examining state data, we saw that writing was one of the heaviest areas that was measured. And it showed that if your kids are not strong in writing, we're not going to succeed. So writing is really the focus for us this year, and along with our district plan for explicit instruction, but writing we're doing as an entire school across the curriculum. And then we also want to retain effective staff and develop teacher leaders. Okay, I'm sorry. For our student well-being and support, as I stated, we have the Kings and Queens on the mission, but we also have many other activities at the middle school. We have the START program, that's an art therapy program, which is actually led by and initiated by a parent, a Warrensville City School District parent, and she's a graduate. And she has, her child was in the middle school, but she started this program that really helps students and, build their confidence, have somewhere, a safe place, make sure she kept a good connection with our families as well in building this program. So we'll be going into our 2nd year with her building that program, and it's been very effective. Also, we want to have early identification for students who are in need of extra support. So even last night at open house, we had a couple of parents who were able to touch base with teachers, and we have scheduled meetings already, even before school started, on setting up plans, because whatever other circumstances that could impact students academically, we are already aware of. We are putting them in touch with the right people. We have the outside resources in school, Heart to Heart, Beachbrook. We have a full-time school social worker. So all of those people that are a part of that are helping to, bring the kids along, but have them feel safe to come in and learn, because they have other circumstances going on. So I felt that was really good, because we had our Beachbrook, we had a table that last night. People could meet with Beachbrook. We had parents that they needed to see the school nurse. The nurse was available, so if they have some medical concerns, all those things were being addressed before your child steps foot into the school. Thank you, David. So once again, the goal of, for academically is to improve our test scores, utilize our proven effective best practice strategies and teaching strategies, increase all academic rigor in all subject areas, and increase our writing across curriculum, and also utilize explicit vocabulary instruction. And back to our community engagement. So what we have done in previous years was have quarterly parent engagement activities, and we have had great turnouts at some and not so great turnout at others. We would try to use, different incentives to get the parents in, but we do feel like it would be most beneficial if the student is rewarded. That scene, once we rewarded the student, they made sure their parents came in. So that worked for us last year. We had a sneaker ball last year. It was fantastic. We had so many people. We couldn't even get the families out the building. It was getting late. We were like, oh my goodness, we couldn't believe that they really turned out for our sneaker ball, but it was effective. It was geared around science and math. So we try to always have attachment to academics when we have our parent engagement activities. And this year, feedback that I've received, and this is just speaking with parents, community members, that they want more consistent communication from the middle school. So what we're going to use is a platform that we already have, which is Infinite Campus. In Infinite Campus, where we house all our attendance and any documentation for students, is that and normally we get our robocalls from our robocall system. I will be able to send out weekly messages to people, to emails, and text messages, and you can do voice calls, but just weekly emails, making sure they're updated about a lot of information. Something I found that happens in middle school, when you give kids notes, the notes don't make it to the house, not so much. So and then in elementary, kids are excited to run home and give their parent a note when they get in the door, but it's not the same. So that's the way that we're going to combat the communication. And I'm also holding my staff accountable that they must respond to or communicate with parents weekly about their student grades. So that way they will know if their children have any missing assignments or where their grade is at right now. We don't always have to wait until it's progress report time or report card time and you haven't heard anything about your child's grades. So that's something that we are implementing this year consistently. And the way this will be monitored or monitoring, evaluating with my staff, where we always meet the guidelines of state evaluations, but more than that, I want to make sure that I identify early on my staff that is in the most need of support, and they get the support, and it's consistent. It's not a one-time or two-time conversation or visit. That is something that lasts throughout the entire school year, and giving them consistent feedback, as well as providing coaching. We have wonderful secondary specialists who come to support our staff, and just making sure we're all keeping the lines of communication open and our staff is getting what they need, because we do need to retain our good teachers, the ones that are effective. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that I know, and it's not a doubt in my mind, that we're going to have a positive and impactful school year of excellence, and that it's an honor and a pleasure to serve the Warrensville community. And I'll take any questions.
Mr.
Chairman, I do have a question. How long have you been the principal of the middle school?
This is my third year.
Okay. And do you feel that you're gauging your staff now? I know it's early and you just came over to the middle school. Are you feeling that you're doing your staff now? Like you said, some positions is not put in, some educators not put in the right place.
Yes. Well, I have hired a number of new staff this year, but I definitely see a difference. I feel a difference. They've shown me a difference of things they have brought to the table. I have staff who has, before school started, initiated and shown that they want to be leaders in the building. They have bring in great ideas. Even my veteran staff are there, like they're amazed, like, oh my goodness, they know these things. They're sharing with us, and they want to lead the charge. So, the people who were not a great fit, they needed to be moved out, and we're getting the right people in the right places.
Thank you.
I do have one quick question for you. How are you going to continue to build a culture of encouraging and motivating the scholars that you have? And it's such a weird time in middle school. You know, you're dealing with so many different things with the students. So what type of plan do you have to encourage that culture so that when they do leave the middle school and go on to the high school, they will be able to carry on those values that you put in place?
It's first going to start with a culture of positivity, but also having that buy-in and having that energy come from my staff. Is the kids can come and they're going to be excited to come and meet their friends and do a lot of different things that middle schoolers do, but they have to come into an environment where they're understood and that it's positive and that they are nurturing that type of culture. It has to happen from all of the adults.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So I want to go back to the fact that you said you had some challenges with staffing. Do you feel as though those challenges have been addressed? Do you have the people at the right place? And I mean, just keep it real, or do we still have to make some changes to get where we need to go? Because this is the year for us. We got to make it happen. So if there's changes that need to be made, my hope is that
the changes have been made. And what I will say is that we're at day one, and I think for me and my responsibility is going to be for me to identify early and address it right away. So if someone needs to go to coaching, a PD, meet with me, or have some kind of redirection in what they're doing, it has to happen now. It's no other time. But what I will say is that as far as you're saying the right people, for my new people, I know what the energy that they're giving, but still they got to show. You know, they got to show it. So if I see, 2 weeks, if they're not meeting the criteria, just basic things, lesson plans, whatever, then it's going to be taken care of because we don't have time. I mean, we do have time. We have time to grow our children. That's what we have time for. We don't have time to go backwards. But we can't go backwards.
So I know that we do evaluations, you go in the room and you're evaluating the teachers. How often is that done? So let me just say this. So on my job, we have performance standards that we have to meet. And as a supervisor, I got to go in and review them every month to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. So I know within 3 months' time if they're failing. Do we have something similar to that set in place? I mean, I know you do the evaluations, but how can we address it sooner rather than waiting till mid-year?
Yeah, we don't want to mid-year.
Yeah.
We don't wait until mid-year. I mean, we have guidelines by the state that we have to meet, but we also have guidelines from our district, from our leadership team, that we have to be in our classrooms observing, giving consistent feedback. And we call them observations or walkthroughs. And it's not their evaluation, but it is a method of us collecting data on what they are doing. Are they making progress towards the goals? Are they doing what they should be doing so that our students are making progress towards their goals? So those are done, you could really say on a daily basis, we are on the ground. We are walking, we're in classes. So but the formal way for the state is less frequent, but we are daily in classes.
One more question. You mentioned that I believe the way this read was that there was a 30% increase in community engagement.
We're looking for.
You're hoping to. Okay.
Yes.
So how are you going? How are you going to gauge that?
So we do gauge it from our we have parent surveys that we've done. So based on what's completed that we send out to parents, and then we also look at like our sign-ins who come in. We do a lot of QR codes. So we get feedback from parents like, how was this program? And so when we look at those numbers, who even participated and gave us feedback? So now how are we going to increase this feedback this time around? What are we going to do different? Or what worked at this particular parent engagement activity and it didn't work at this one? And we're just strategizing on how to revamp some of those things to have parents more involved. One thing we do know is that when we attach an engagement activity on a night of a sport, we had a phenomenal time. We had a basketball game in my gym, and I had pizza making night for math. It was like a math fraction night. It was out of sight. It was out of sight. So those are things that we're trying to be more strategic about, making sure we have the schedules and knowing when things are happening, even if it's happening at the high school. A lot of times the siblings attend the middle school, so just do something then.
Good luck to you this year.
Thank you.
He's right, middle school is funky, it is so funky, so good luck to you.
Thank you.
I have
Good luck.
maybe one comment, and my biggest concern, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I strongly believe that we have excellent staff in place this year. My only problem with that is, I really don't want you to wait till the end of the first semester to tell us that we don't have a good fit, that they're not meeting the need of our children. Because the people that's gonna suffer is our scholars. And I mean, you might like this individual and all of that, but at the end of the day, it's about meeting the needs of our children. That's the end. That's the end for me. You know, again, I believe personnel has hired some excellent people. I'm gonna be honest with you. I met quite a few, and their enthusiasm is there. So all I want is to see them produce. You know, don't just talk to talk without showing us that you can really motivate our children to be successful and then enjoy education. So, because if kids enjoy education, they're going to enjoy coming to school. You know, so that's the only thing.
Same with staff too, though. Staff
Huh?
needs to be, staff
Oh yeah, the
needs to be
staff
able
has
to
to
enjoy
come.
their job as well.
I mean, you can't have subs in a class for a whole week. You know, I'm gonna be honest, I was a previous sub. I understand that how important lesson plans are important for a sub to follow. If you don't have that, that means the sub doesn't know how to guide.
Right.
You know, but so just stay on top of it this year. You know, just do what you're supposed to do.
I will.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Ms. Salter, I have a couple questions as well. At the onset of your presentation, and also I think during the academic goals, you mentioned explicit instruction. Could you tell us what that's comprised of and what it looks like?
Yes, it's comprised of 16 elements of how lessons should be planned and delivered, and how students should perform to demonstrate that they understand it and know it, and also how you should assess. Those are the components, and that is our district initiative for our instruction for all our schools. So we actually have our lesson plan templates formatted to support the explicit instruction, and our staff, many of our staff have received the professional development from it, even from the originating person, Anita Archer. And I have staff in my building who's actually been recorded. They use their classroom lessons as best practices to even show other teachers of how to implement explicit instruction in your classroom. So that's something that I'm making sure that my new teachers coming on board who may not be familiar with it, but everyone will have a refresher, and those who do not know will be informed on how to deliver lessons with explicit instruction.
Okay. Now, in order to monitor that, do you judge it by ensuring that the teachers are carrying out the tenets, or is it by the progress of the scholars? How do you ensure that we're carrying out those?
A number of things. It will be lesson planning, making sure that they are planning following explicit instruction. Okay. It would also be from our teacher team-based meetings we have weekly. We'll be having them twice a week. We have TBTs, and then we're also going to have vertical planning this year, where it's a focus on our interventions in our core curriculum. So if you are math teachers will now all be able to get together and meet. ELA teachers will get together and meet. So we will gauge it through that. We will gauge it through assessment. So once students are assessed from if it's an identified standard or skill that is to be taught, we will observe it. We will look at what the assessments results are, and then we will go back and we will look at what strategies we're implementing. If those are not what's effective or what's working, we're going to look at what are some other best practices that we need to put in place for scholars, and we will reassess. They will reteach, and we will give them the feedback, and we will continue that cycle until we are showing progress and moving through the standards, because we can't stay in one place. We can't stay stagnant and just say, oh, we should stuck right here. It's so many things our kids need to learn throughout the year that we can't just get stuck. So we will constantly have a cycle of monitoring the feedback, checking for progress, and then reteaching, and we're going to move them along.
Okay. And finally, I have a variation of the same question I asked Ms. Thompson. At the end of this year, what would be like a win for you? What would have you saying, other than the 7% increases, what would have you think like, okay, we did our thing this year? What would be those?
50%. Half of my students are, or if not more, are proficient.
Mhm.
They are. I mean, it's, if you talk to the kids, you know that they're proficient. You can just having a conversation. They have the capability. But I'm going to make sure, I want to make sure we exceed the 7%. It is a goal that's attainable. We didn't attain it, so we owe it to Warrensville. We owe more than 7% to Warrensville. So that's what's going to make me feel like we did our thing, exceeding 7%.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Board, any additional?
No, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, our high school principal, Ms. Bishop, and her team.
We are tired.
We can imagine.
Open house last night till 8, and then again with our students. We had 9th grade come in today, which we're very excited. We had a sale of over $4,000 in uniforms during the back to school fair.
Oh, wow.
So that let us know that they know, right, that we got to make sure that we're there and in uniform. But we're going to start off, I think everyone knows, this is Assistant Principal Dyson, Assistant Principal Perry, and we have, come on over, she's a part of our team, Ms. Couture, our math coach. And I have them here because it's not for me to just stand here and say what I'm going to do. It definitely is a team effort. That is something that the superintendent has instilled within us, the one team. Well, it's not just a slogan. Right. It is something that we really do want to make sure that we are carrying that out, right? So we're going to look at the English language arts. That's our first one up. This is the only subject that we didn't meet the 7%. I would have bet the family farm that we would have met it, because usually at the high school, ELA does meet that standard. They usually do. I will say, just like Ms. Salter said, we had several staff members that needed to be exited, and we did carry that out. I think Ms. Dyson and Mr. Perry, because they evaluated them based on the O test, okay? And we did it according to the way we should have done. So we got rid of some weak links. They just were not good fits. And our ELA scores, when we looked at the 3 individual teachers that taught this ELA to, the one that really didn't contribute to making sure that we met that 7% is no longer with us, okay? So we'll look at last year's 9th graders. The teacher, we actually had her to loop up to teach 10th grade this year, okay? So I know just from being at an elementary principal, looping does work really well. It helps with continuity. The teacher already knows the kids. There's not a lot of trying to get to know who you are. So we did loop that one 9th grade teacher up to 10th grade, which is a tested grade level. We have coaching that will be provided by a secondary literacy specialist to enhance all ELA instructions. You have on there, that's new. Her name, and I know her last name, Howard. What's her first name? Okay, Andres Howard, who was brought on board. Okay. We did not have a secondary literacy specialist last year, but we will have that this year. That's something that we will be implementing. Ongoing personalized professional development in explicit instruction, which you heard from Ms. Salter and actually Ms. Thompson as well, because it is at the elementary, the middle, and the high, okay? Instruction through daily 20-minute curriculum modules. So again, I'm gonna shout out the curriculum department. Last year, they came together, and I don't know how many man hours, but they put together over, how many modules? Lots of modules on explicit instruction. Oh, okay. What we did at the high school was we released the teachers from lunch duty. So myself, Ms. Dyson, Mr. Perry, And then we have both of ours, behavioral specialists and our culture coach and one security officer do lunch duty.
Oh, okay.
So that they could go and get that 25, 30-minute module in their classroom. They got to choose, okay, I'm having a hard time on the do now. They could go and watch maybe a 10-minute module on do now. I'm not quite sure how to wrap up my lesson. They can go and watch the module in real time there in their classroom, and then they had to do exit tickets for the modules to ensure that they understood what the content was, and then how are they going to put that strategy in the classroom. We will continue that this year as well. Walkthroughs by administration and coach to monitor the implementation. We had Ms. Smilik and Ms. Couture along with the three of us that actually did go through the classrooms and just monitor implementation. Like, what are you actually doing in their meeting? Like, are you really doing the do now, or we just see kids sitting around for 20 minutes? So that will continue this year. If you look, you'll see the superintendent gave us the goals. You see we have stretch goals that are circled. That's our goal. We had already said before they gave it to us that 7% wasn't gonna be enough. And so our goal is to actually meet the stretch goal for the ELA, okay?
Can you go back 1 second?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at this right. So you were at 37%. The goal is the extra 7%.
Which is
to get to the
44%.
And then another 7%.
The stretch goal is 51%.
So your stretch goal is
51%.
7%.
Yes.
Where you are. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, okay?
All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, we can go on to math. All right, so I'm going to have Ms. Couture come up and talk a little bit about the math. As again, you can see we are doing our stretch goals. We're not looking at just 7%. We did meet the 7% last year in math. But as you can look, geometry, of course, that's never acceptable. Right? The previous year, we had 2 teachers that had 0% of their students score proficient. This year, actually last year, we had 1 teacher again who did not have 1 student meet the proficiency on the geometry. We're dealing with that in the way we're supposed to. We're looking to HR and our administrators that are doing all the evaluations. One of the things is it's a very old, bad habit that has happened for a long time with this particular person. And I'm just, everybody knows who I am. I'm very transparent. You cannot come to school every day and not instruct students, but you get paid a full check.
Right.
To me, that is educational robbery. And everyone knows who that person is. It's not everyone in the building knows who that person is. Everyone that's been there knows who that person is. And yet we aren't getting any return from, I think he makes, I'm sorry, I think it's $90,000 or so that this person is making, and we're getting 0 in return. That to me, I mean, I wish it was. You mentioned, Ms. Gator, that you have to evaluate people in education. You can't just kick people out. It doesn't work that way,
can't either.
right? You have to go through a big process to make that happen. The superintendent is very supportive to give us everything we need, but when you have one person, I know everybody remembers the weakest link, it makes it very difficult. Nevertheless, our other 2 geometry teachers did meet the goal, and we're proud of that part. So I'm gonna have Ms. Couture come up and talk a little bit about our action steps.
So in algebra, we did have, again, 45% of our students reach the proficiency score. However, algebra has what is called a competency score, and 72% of our algebra students did meet that last year. And
so, I'm sorry, let me just say one thing on that. So what we noticed was 72% of those 9th graders that came in from the middle school, they did meet the competency score, which means they don't have to take that test again. It wasn't at 700, I want to say it's 684. So 72% was able to meet, that means they were competent. You look at why it's called competency score. They were competent in that Algebra 1. So we are 100% sure that as we continue on, not only will we get 72% competency, we should be able to get over the proficiency part, which is that 700 score. Okay.
So Ms. Bishop kind of said what I was just going to say. So we did have 72% reach the competency score, and the goal, of course, that discrepancy between that 45% and that 72%, those are really our bubble students, the ones that we can really push towards proficiency to really ensure that we can meet not only this year's goal but this year's stretch goal. One of the ways that I'm going to be supporting that is with one-on-one coaching as we expect our teachers to be able to provide individualized instruction to our students. My goal is to provide individualized coaching to our math teachers. And so that coaching is done on site during the school day, partially as part of the teacher-based teams, but also individually with the identified teachers. And along with that, also the professional development within the curriculum and instructional practices, collaborative planning, whether that's just me one-on-one with a teacher or a group of teachers, to ensure that the activities that are being implemented align with the goals that the teacher has within the classroom, but also the expectation of ensuring that we are growing our students. And then just resource sharing, making sure that whatever we are using within our math classes are the best resources for our students, that they are aligned with all of our goals, that they are promoting the problem solving and the writing that is absolutely needed in order for our students to be successful on their OSTs.
And then I'll just add, we are looking, I'm sure most of you all know Miss Simmons, who retired from the elementary, who was an amazing math teacher. She did retire, and I've reached out to her. She is open to come to do at least 3 days a week, just tutoring. Again, she always had, the 1 year right before COVID, I want to say we were almost right there at 4th grade at Eastwood, almost 75% proficient for her. So that's another one of our little tools that we're going to pull out as well. All right, now American history and American government, we did meet the goal this year. If you look, the American history was at 43%, American government at 51%. We are going to, again, stretch, and I like that stretch goal. We are going to be pushing closer towards, the goal is, and I'll answer you, Mr. Roberts, before you ask, the goal is, how will we feel like we've done our thing, is when I begin to see, and we as a team see our numbers, it's not enough to be under 50%. It just isn't, right? So the closer we can move towards 65, 70%, then we can begin to feel a little bit better by that, right? So that is ultimately our goal. Action steps, so I will say this, that social studies team, they truly took to heart at the end of last year. They didn't do bad per se, but they also know that the goal is you have to actually do better. So in all of their TBTs, they did all come with their data, which is important as part of the TBT process. They all were able to articulate, they were able to say, well, Barbara's having a really hard time in this. We would ask the questions. They were able to articulate where those students were individually. They could tell us where Keith was at. They could tell us all of that. That helped us to know that, okay, now they're really looking at it, which is different from before. I always said, and I love history, but I said, how can a student not pass social studies? I just don't understand. It's not math, right? It's not ELA. It's social studies. Now, we know they need to know how to read to be able to pass any test, right? We know that. However, making the actual lessons relevant and interesting and not boring. We did have to exit one of our social studies teachers. It was not a good fit. So we've hired, and you all have seen all the high school staff that we've hired that can actually bring that to our students. And then we're looking forward to that. So I'm going to let Ms. Dyson talk about the action steps.
So our action steps for our history, we have our explicit vocabulary instruction. They implement that on a daily basis. The teachers do different vocabulary strategies throughout our social studies. They do progress monitoring every week, and they also have their TBTs where they meet twice a week. And so during those TBTs, they first look at the data. They look at the data second, but first they look at the strategies that were used, some things that students were struggling with, how can they, revamp it, and then teach the stuff again. And then the second one is our data, meaning they actually look at the data to see what standards students were struggling with and what they needed to reteach. Social studies has also started, they're starting next week actually. They have started writing Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, every social studies teacher will have a writing prompt for their students. And they're also taking their first quiz, I believe, on the 23rd. Yeah. And so they also have like do nows, and they also utilize exit tickets a lot. And those do nows and exit tickets are based on the standards that they covered the previous day and the standards that they covered that day.
And they're going to provide just exemplar questions. One of the big things that we did do with the ELA as well is text quad sets. And that is something where they put text in front of students. They did the PD last year at the ESC. And so we're just rolling that over into the other subjects as well. Now, especially with this very important presidential election coming up, you have high school students that are very interested. And so using those current events to draw them into what's going on is really important. You can have some very rich conversations because they're high schoolers. They listen to mom, and some of them watch CNN, and some of them really want to be involved in the civic part of this. So we're looking forward to that part coming up in November. We can move on. Okay, science. We did meet our goal last year, but we are once again looking for that stretch score. We will talk about the action steps. So incorporate weekly hands-on lab activities and experiments in the science curriculum to foster active learning and application of the scientific method. I'm going to ask Ms. Ruth Ray, who I see back there, to talk a little bit about that science lab, the Ed Chambers STEAM room that's there, and how we're going to be incorporating that this year.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Ms. Ray.
We actually have an opportunity as the board has invested into 3 maker spaces in our district. This year, we started this year off with all of our science teachers, actually our art teachers, along with our career tech education teachers, who are being trained to use all of the materials inside of that Ed Chambers innovation space for middle school and high school. This year at the middle school, we have an opportunity to place the actual science teacher inside of one of the maker spaces. And that's all to ensure that application is happening in science. Along with our scope and sequence, we added a component to the scope and sequence where our teachers will actually identify which project the scholar will do each quarter, which standard, actually which project it will be, and how they will use a piece of technology in the makerspace to make this happen. So not just telling us teachers that, okay, now we have to do more hands-on, we're actually giving them opportunity in the tools and the resources and making purchases for our physics and our chemistry teacher so that she could, to ensure that our upper scholars who are in those upper sciences are doing a hands-on component, along with our 7th grade level, making a large investment there, that will start there. So it will begin to spill over. And we really know that that is a key piece that's missing, that application component in our sciences.
One quick question.
Ms. Ray?
Ms. Ray, do you work closely with the science teachers?
I do have an opportunity to work with the science teachers. Actually, pre-K through 12.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
And we've already had our meetings this year, established some things. And at the end of the year, we met and was able to put together a really great calendar. I've sent you the welcome back. If you get an opportunity to look at that calendar, you will see a lot of the blueprints for sciences. You'll see the information even for our career tech education. Because now in career tech we have biomed and we're adding a health science component there too also. And all of the science that take place along with our fire tech programming. So review that information. Any questions you may have for me, I'm more than willing to answer.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, along with that, the workshops will be provided on the effective lab instruction. Believe it or not, kids really do like science, but you have to again make it interesting. So we do have 2 new science teachers, and as Ms. Salter shared, the enthusiasm is unbelievable. Just to come in, I think you met Miss Brown, who is one of our new biomed and science teachers. She was there almost throughout the whole summer, labeling her lab, labeling everything, putting everything up, just eager and ready to get in there. And then we have a new 9th grade physical science teacher, Mr. Villum. You all have met him as well. So we're really ready to beef up. I will say Ohio has a real, to me, disadvantage at the way they actually test in science. It's tested 5th grade, not again till 8th grade, and then they skip again and not again till 10th grade. So they're at a little bit of an advantage. It's kind of like a little bit disjointed. So I know Ruth is very excited about science, much more than anybody I've ever seen. Just science, science, science. So, it is important. She did attend the TBT yesterday with our staff before, during the PD sessions before we actually had students come back in. So we're going to be looking forward to that continuing. And then providing weekly OST tutoring. So I want to talk about this. One of the things is, to me, you can have more people and not do enough or not have them doing what they need to do. So we want to ensure the people that we have a retired science teacher who is amazing. We're going to really utilize her differently this year. She's going to take 3 to 4 students max, 3 times a week throughout that day. And she's going to take them in our little learning areas there. And on the pair assessment, which is for Ohio, they have practice biology. Actually, they probably have all of them, but I heard today just the practice biology. She's going to begin to work with them next week. So we're not waiting to January to do a big push. We're starting in September. And so she will be pulling that. She's going to be required to write each student's name down, the duration of time that she's been with them, and what standards they covered. That's some documentation that she'll have to present back to myself and our admin team to look at, so that we can ensure, that's a word that the OIP, I was going to say OPI, which is nail polish. OIP, they want you to follow that. You have to follow that 5-step process. And one of it is, how can you ensure? That's a word we hear all the time. How can you ensure? How can the BOT ensure that we're doing and following all these pieces for the students? So that's something we're going to be requiring from that person that's going to be there in our building. And then the department chair will provide her with those questions and assessments as well, and go over that part with her, so that again, we're absolutely, everybody's firing on all cylinders. Okay, we can go on. So now I'm going to turn this back over to Ms. Dyson, who was in charge of the PBIS.
So when looking at our school culture, some things that we are going to continue this year. We do have student and staff of the month. And we have bulletin boards along our main hallway that displays our students and staff of the month. So we're going to continue that. We have our weekly shout outs that we're going to continue. We have our teachers, they turn in pride tickets. And so we're going to continue our weekly shout outs over the PA system. Of course, we're going to continue our pride slips. Teachers, when they fill out the pride slips, they give the pride slips to the students. The students are then charged with taking those pride slips, and we have little pockets out in the main hallway of our PBIS bulletin board where they can put those slips in there, those rewards or slips they get from the teachers, they put them in there. And then or other members of the PBIS team who are amazing, retrieves them, and then those students are then recognized over the shout outs. This year that is different, well, this year something that we're doing new is our Pride Awards. So just like students receive like an honor roll award or a merit roll award, we're going to issue Pride Awards to students this year that we can distribute. We're thinking about distributing them during lunch, where you have the most of the students, so other students can see that their peers are receiving these awards and being recognized. Something else new that we have one of our amazing math teachers who creates swag wear. So she's going to create some PBIS spirit wear. So these will be given to students who get chosen for Student of the Month and staff also. So they'll have PBIS as well. And another thing that is new this year is we're calling it restorative check-in sheet. Thanks to Mr. Perry, he gave me the name. So what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of infractions that students have. Okay. So if we notice that it's a continuum, like they're continuously getting sent to in-school suspension, they're going to get this restorative check-in sheet. It'll have what they're working on, and they have to do it daily, give it to their teachers, they report their grade, their behavior, and so forth, just to give them something to work towards. If a student so happens to get suspended, then they're automatically on that when they come back. And the minimum is 2 weeks. The minimum is 2 weeks. If we feel as an admin team that it needs to be longer, then we will extend it. So that is something that we are excited to implement this school year.
And so just to the top point there, this is our second year in cell phone policy, the Yonder policy. Again, we thank Ms. Alton for really wanting to bring us on. Okay. So the whole campus is on that, and we do thank the board for that as well. Just the commitment. We had over 6 other districts come and visit our school last year. And as a result, Yonder is doing very well. They all had to now implement by the governor's decree. You have to have a cell phone policy. So now many of the other area districts have purchased Yonder pouches as well. Right. We are going to be requiring our students that come for CTE, they must also now put their phone in the pouch. Last year, we didn't because their districts didn't, but even if it wasn't happening, we realized for our own students it was unfair to allow other kids to be in the building on their phone, and our students had to have them locked away. So we do thank you all for that. The next slide, I'm going to have Mr. Perry to go over that.
Good evening. So just to even kind of sum it up and wrap it up, you think about, we talked about academics, which that's all of us. Academic instruction is most important, but to get the scores that you need, the overall culture is very important, because if your building is out of control, you're not going to get the top scores that you need. And if you look at the state, you look at the top schools and you walk through their school, it might not be perfect, but you know when a school is doing well. So basically, I'm on the second floor in the satellite office. We're very rarely in our main office is in the suite. Ms. Bishop is on the first floor with the freshmen. Ms. Dyson is on the third floor. So it's about being highly visible. You have to be visible, because if you're visible, you can kind of decrease some of the issues that may prop up in your school building. Security on each floor. I think we have a pretty good, a very solid security staff who we work very well together. And Coach Meach and Russ, we all work as a team. So we try our best to kind of curtail different things that happen. The mentoring thing, what I want to say is, and just being transparent, I just felt as if last year, in our first year in the building, I thought we was trying to sweep up the hallways, clean it up. And I thought that we did that. But I think in the area of young men, I feel that we just did not do a good job of maybe creating some things for the young men. So we're trying to do some things this year. We talk to young men, but it's more so informal. Or it might have been at the time you was on my desk and I'm writing your paperwork up, for you to go home. So we want to be a little bit more proactive with the young men, because we know what's going on with our young men in that age range. And that was a big problem, and I believe we had a great year last year, but just, even the issues with drugs, the issues with just different things in the building. I said, our young men, need so much more assistance. So I was in on a meeting with Club Legit. Mr. Salim used to come last year, so, and I'm pretty sure you know we have enough men in the building, solid men, not just men and not just bodies, but I believe we have enough solid men to really cultivate our young men in a different direction. We have to do that. I believe we could take the building to an even higher level than what we are now and increase it. Because if our school culture is correct, I really believe the scores will follow. If your school culture is not right, you can best believe your scores probably won't meet that. It's a correlation of that. And also daily classroom visits. I find it that, and I'm not just saying that, I've heard Superintendent Jolly say if you in the classes more, it'll decrease who's in your office and things like that. And that's a big thing, just getting into the classes. I'll speak for me often. I get caught up with my walkie-talkie. I'm getting called all over the place. So my biggest thing is to be more productive instead of busy this year. If you come into the building, I'm all over the place, trying to do different things and just trying to meet the needs. But I think it has to be more productive in the sense of it helping us get, because at the end of the day, it's where the ball lands. You guys are looking at scores. We're talking about what we're going to do, but at the end of the day, when you get the report card, you're looking at where the ball is going to land at. And we got to just do it. We have to make the grade, and because you can get rid of us, you can get me out of here. I told this kids today, you're here. The board is here for you. And I was in a meeting assembly with those ninth graders. I said they can get rid of me easy. If you live in a district and you're not doing them bad, you're going to be here. So we have to get the results. And I just want us to continue to grow as a staff. And I have to get them classrooms. And also, just so you guys know, a lot of my work when I got here my first year, she gave me, she said, well, you got CTE. I'm like, huh? CTE. So I've been learning that, and I've been working with Ms. Ray a lot, and she's been very supportive and teaching me things. So this is year 4. So on my hands will be a lot more on the career and technical programs, and I know that we're trying to grow it. I know this year we're up to about 60-something students. So I know the goal was to not just have all of these people coming and having more kids coming and having more kids in Warrensville from other schools doing CTE and then what we have here. So this is the highest, Ms. Ray, I believe we've ever been, if I'm not mistaken. So 16 of the clinical health is ours. So I just, the school culture is everything. Academics is everything. And we're all a team. And we have to meet those goals. And we're not satisfied. I'm a former athlete. I'm not content with where we are at. So I'm my biggest critic. You guys can criticize me, but I'm my biggest critic. So we don't meet the grade, then, you're going to get rid of us. As simple as that,
Okay, I believe that might be the end. Yep, that was the end. So any questions?
I have a quick question. Sure. With high school being like the last level before these students get out into the real world,
right?
Do you see an increase or decrease in parent involvement as the students begin to go?
So Warrensville is unique. Okay. We have the community of Warrensville. There's a lot of Tiger Pride here. So you do have parents, like last night, our building was loaded with parents that came to open house. And I think that's just a part of them having, themselves that pride of, I want my kid to graduate from Warrensville. We had a student today who the mom called. They had left for 2 years. She said, and I had him at Eastwood. So I was the principal of Eastwood. Now, this year, I'm seeing all those students at the high school. She wanted him to come back. She says, I just want him to graduate from Warrensville. So, of course, it's not as active as Ms. Thompson will get at the elementary because those are little kids. They are dependent on the parents. The higher up you get, in the grade level, parents don't come as much. But I would say we do very well based on the fact that it's Tiger Pride, and they come.
I will say this, Mr. Swift has started the athletic boosters back. So there's a core group of parents, high school parents, that started the athletic boosters. So when he does his presentation, he will share that.
Yep. Any other questions?
I don't know whether it's a question or a comment back there. I just hate to hear that we start with a red flag. And when I say a red flag, that means when we have 2 individuals that's not performing. I mean, come on now, it's just unacceptable. And I don't know what the coach can do, to be honest with you. Is it her job to?
So I'll say this, if it was my choice, as I have often heard before, get a box, pack your stuff up and go. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
When you
And
are
what a lot of
investing
people
that
do-
much money and you're not getting a return, what are you gonna do, right? However, no, it's not necessarily her, it's, all of that falls on me
Mhm.
first, and the assistant principals as well with the evaluations, which they did very well in their evaluations. And that individual was basically evaluated appropriately.
So let me speak to that. I think we should not talk about that anymore. I think we should
okay.
definitely just move forward
Let's
and
move
do our
on.
best.
It's a new
Just
day.
move forward and do our best.
My statement is, at the end of the day, who's suffering?
I agree, and I believe due process and just allowing the process to work itself out will happen.
I just have a comment. I want to thank all of the principals, and I know preschool hasn't gone yet, but I'm going to say it in advance. I want to thank all of you for coming. You all shared gains, and you all had some losses. But you know, we celebrate the wins, and we learn from the losses, and we move forward. The one thing, there was a resounding theme for me with pretty much everyone, and it all speaks to our strategic plan. There's 3 key items on our strategic plan that as a board, we're committed to. Right. First one, of course, is academic excellence, because we're in the business of turning out excellent students into the community. The other one is talent management. So we are committed to making sure that the right staff is there. As far as the other challenges, we leave that up to you guys to figure out how to navigate that, because we all want to make sure that we're hitting that 7% goal. And we all, or more, and then the third one, it was academics, talent management. What am I forgetting? There's a third one, I'm sorry. Culture. Someone else talked about culture. So as someone who's worked for the district years ago, Barbara was with me, in a school that had excellent culture, we turned out students that were, doing really, really well. So make sure that, and I'm not saying that I've seen an issue, but just make sure that when the parents are coming in, that they're being greeted, that the phones are being answered. All those little things come into play. And I heard you talk about making sure that they're enjoying it, making it exciting and engaging. That comes into play too. So I think we've got a great team, ready to start the school year off. And you got our support. So just know, we're here for you. Definitely.
Ms. Bishop, I'd like to thank you for being proactive in answering the question that you knew I was going to ask. And with that, I would just say thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry, last but not least, Ms. Irvin, come on. We don't want to rush you. But we do need a quick version.
Good evening.
All right, we need a quick version.
We had a great turnout tonight with
All right.
several councils tonight. Lots of eager faces. Our goal and our focus this year is developing a solid foundation. We know that if we have the foundation in our building, and it is solid, that when they continue on to Ms. Thompson and middle school and high school, we won't have these huge gaps.
Okay.
Just looking at last year, we had a brand new building. We had to develop a partnership because we are still sharing the building with the church and a new community. Highland Hills was eager to develop that partnership. We do monthly activities with Highland Hills, so they'll bring their trucks and the kids will get to go out and get on the trucks. Our police officers and firefighters have come in multiple times and read to the students and done visits in the classroom. So just building that partnership with the community. They're excited that everybody's still there. We had a couple new staff members last year, but just building that team and the culture, we wanted to make sure, because we have the little babies in the building, that we have that positive culture and that our staff are eager and ready for them daily. We started the year off with 7 kindergarten classrooms and 5 preschool rooms, but our preschool numbers grew very high last year with our waiting list, and our kindergarten numbers remained lower. So we did close a kindergarten room and open up an additional preschool room.
Last year, we did have our students who are self-contained special needs go to the elementary school. We did change that this year. All kindergarten students will be in our building. And then last year, we had a true co-teaching model for the first time.
Okay.
So we had one kindergarten classroom who had a regular ed teacher and a special ed teacher in that room all day, every day. They made a huge room. And then just growing together as a staff and community. Just some of our data. We use Acadians for kindergarten. We started the year off with 64% of our students being well below or below benchmark, and only 36% being on benchmark. And by the end of the year, we were at 79%. Our goal was 80%, so we did not meet our goal, but we were very close to that goal. And then we had 21% of our students that were not on benchmark.
Next.
We also use iReady for reading and math. We started off 10% on this benchmark. We grew 80%. We had 90% of our students on benchmark at the end of the year. 81% of our students meeting their individual growth measure. So we look at like the 70% that we use for the other assessments that you previously looked at today. With iReady, it gives each student what they should be meeting at the end of the year, and 81% of our students in reading met that goal. And then for math, if you go to the next slide, I believe it was 75. Yes, 75% of our students met that goal. We grew from 9% to 75% at the end of the year. Last year, Mr. Dickerson, was our second year with the new curriculum? Second year with the new curriculum. I will say 2 years ago, the kindergarten staff did not buy in fully for the math curriculum. But last year they said, you know what, we're going to trust the process, we're going to use it, and we saw the gains. So that is what we'll be continuing to do. And then if you go to the next slide, we do not have any assessments that preschool and kindergarten use together.
Okay.
So to look at growth in the building, when we're looking at our building leadership team and DLT, we had to do something that we could look at across the board. So we use the ABC and 1, 2, 3 assessment. So it is just an assessment looking at uppercase letter identification, lowercase letter identification, letter sounds with short vowel sounds, number recognition, one-to-one correspondence that students could, manipulate and move specific blocks over. And then what did that look like? So in preschool, students don't have to master anything. They're just being exposed to the curriculum. But we'd still assess them to see what they were able to know at the end of the year. So this shows our students that were ages 3, 4, and 5. So many of the students on this list, I believe there's 29 of them, are not going to kindergarten. They're still in preschool this year. So some of the numbers do look a little bit lower, but that's because the kids are still remaining. It wasn't age appropriate for a 3 or early 4-year-old to know all their letters or to know all their numbers. If you go to the next slide, it shows our kindergarten data. Our goal was 85% last year. We had several classrooms have 100% mastery, and then the light green shaded were those classrooms over 90%. And then we had one teacher who had over 90% in all the areas assessed.
Okay.
So again, our vision this year is still to build that solid foundation, so that we don't have these gaps. And we're talking about no new instruction and intervention. The goal is that we won't have to do that intervention, that we just teach our tier 1 curriculum. So how are we going to do that? Our goals this year for math, again, we have a lot of goals, but to do something that we prepare for preschool and kindergarten was that ABC 1, 2, 3 assessment. In preschool, our stretch goal is to make sure that 70% of our students are there, and in kindergarten, we upped it this year to 90%. We want 90% of our students to be able to recognize and write numbers 0 to 20, have that one-to-one correspondence, and then automaticity. That's the big thing. Not just, oh, let me think about it, or it's within a 5-second time frame. So the next slide. Reading is also 70%. We upped our kindergarten to 95%. We want them reading by the end of the year. So in order to read, we have to know our letters and our letter sounds. So that's why we upped that to 95%. And again, that's with that automaticity. We will also look at our science and social studies. We want to make sure that our kids are ready. We heard earlier that they're only assessed in science and fifth and eighth grade and then at 10th grade. But if we're not doing something every single year, that's a lot for that fifth grade teacher. So we want to make sure that we're exposing our students with all the curriculum, and we're looking at our standards-based report card and making sure that our students are meeting meeting expectations of 80% of our students in that area. We will do this with our explicit instruction. We do have a teacher on board who went to Washington State a couple years ago, got trained firsthand by Dr. Archer, and then we have several teachers also who have been reported in the portal, as Ms. Couture said earlier, that we could use. We are focusing on vocabulary instruction, making sure that our students are exposed to different vocabulary, checking for understanding, and a brisk pace. We do not have time to waste. We don't have time for the fluff. That's one of Dr. Anita Archer's favorite saying is to cut the fluff and get to the stuff. So we have to cut all the fun stuff out. We want to make sure that our kids are having fun and enjoying school, but if it doesn't mean something and it's not going to be used, we can't spend a lot of time on that. We are also have no new instruction, not only reading, but for math as well. So we do a half-hour reading, no new instruction, and math. It's not just intervention, but it's also enrichment. So if we have students that are already coming in knowing all their letters and letter sounds, we're ready to push them further, not just meet them or go behind. We're focusing a lot on attendance, social emotional learning, and family engagement. We know that if kids aren't in school, they're not learning. Our building was only assessed through the state this year on our attendance. We only got 1 star. Everyone spent a lot of time focusing on this year's. And unfortunately, our students don't have a lot of power in that. It's up to the parents to bring them to school. They can't just get to school on their own. So we're trying to motivate. Last year, we motivated the parents. So every month, we rewarded the parents and the child if they came to school on time every day that month. So you'll see in a couple slides, we had pictures. We had a breakfast. So if they came to school every day in the month of February, the 1st of March, they were invited to breakfast, a parent and a child. So we did something every month. We're trying to do something a little bit bigger this year to get our kids there. So our goal is to have students 94% every day, and then increase our chronic absenteeism by 7%. Social emotional learning is huge at this age. You come this week and next week, and maybe even the week after, you hear a lot of screaming, a lot of crying, crawling around the floor. But that's age appropriate. Kids are getting used to sometimes being away from their parent for the first time. And even at the end of the year, some of our kids communicate through yelling and crying because they don't know any other way yet. So just getting to know our students, we're teaching them other ways to learn. We will also be implementing this year PBIS. Last year we used conscious discipline, and just to align it with the rest of the district, we are moving to PBIS this school year. And then finally, our goal is to have 100% of our parents attend 50% of our monthly family engagement activities. So every month we have something for the parents to participate in. It may be something small like Muffins with Mrs., or it may be huge. We had a prom last year. It could be a curriculum night, something every month. Last year we only did 2 academic parent nights. Our goal was to get parents into the building and enjoy school, so we don't have that negative scenario between parents and school. This year, we're going to try to incorporate more academic as well as the fun. For our attendance, we're going to reward students quarterly instead of monthly. Some bigger field trips, just to get them there. Parents are already aware. This was on our opening parent letter, so parents are aware of what our goal and incentive is. We also have our social worker coming to the school daily, so she could talk with parents and greet with parents, especially those kiddos that are being dropped off late, and then follow up with phone calls. Again, we have our monthly family engagement calendar already out. It's all welcome at any time to come to any of our family engagement activities. They are a lot of fun, and parents, for our Winter Wonderland last year, we had 3 parents, I believe, out of the full grade level that did not attend. So they are well attended by families. The same thing with, last year we called it prom, this year we're going to go with spring fling, so just got a little out of hand, so we're gonna go with Spring Fling this year.
I was a little over the top, yeah.
Here's some of our pictures. We had our math night. The kids got to do hands-on activities with the parents, and then that helps that correspondence. That was a picture of our Winter Wonderland where we provided breakfast for the parents, and then they built a gingerbread house together. And if you go to the next slide, I believe that is our prom that we had last year. So parents really dressed up and they had a great time. They had a great time. And then finally, that was some of our activities that we did with the attendance motivation. So a breakfast and a lunch that the parents attended. Any questions?
Mr. Freeman?
I do have a question. What, and if you could tell me last year, or probably can't tell me this year, but what's your scholar to educator ratio right now? Like how many?
So currently, last year we had 18 to 20 students in preschool.
Okay.
Every classroom has a teacher and a paraprofessional.
Okay.
Our kindergarten classes last year were around 17 to 18. Again, a teacher and
That's
a
really good.
paraprofessional. This year, we're currently sitting at, I believe it's 11 students in preschool. We know that number will go up as we enroll.
Correct.
And kindergarten is about 14.
Good job.
We have 9 classes this year in kindergarten though. So we have 5 typical classrooms. We have 1 co-taught classroom. And then we have 2 self-contained classrooms. I'm sorry, 8 classrooms. So we have a total of 8 classrooms in kindergarten this year.
Good job.
So, at the end of the year, what percentage of the kindergartners that goes into first grade able to read?
We had 79% of our students on grade level last year.
Fantastic.
I like that.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Fuller? I think, thank you very much for your presentation. I think you benefited from being last, Ms. Urban. I think my board had run out of questions out of time, but I did not. I have the same question for you that I have for everyone else. What would, end of year, what would be a win for you and your staff?
For our staff, I would say students coming to school and enjoying school daily.
Right.
Leaving kindergarten on grade level.
Yes, ma'am.
And then staff still happy with where they are.
All right. So I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank our entire staff for coming in with your great presentation today.
Thank you, guys.
I know it's been an extremely long day for you. I commend you. So at this time, go home, get as much rest as you can, and let's do it again tomorrow. All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna go with, we're gonna bring Mr. Farnsworth first, and then, good, because I hope. You know what I'm saying? Okay. All right, at this time.
Which one are we?
We're going to go, as they read, the first one is to consider the appointment, and the second one is for the collective bargaining. So we're going to move into our consecutive executive sessions. So at this time, board, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to do item 3.1, enter executive session for the purpose of, to consider the appointment, employment discipline, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee, official, or regulated individual or students, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded. Dr. Rock, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. We will now move into executive session.
I think we're going back.
Yes.